this is Kathy. Now, this took a lot of doing because Kathy very seldom comes into the middle of things. She kind of stays on the outside edge, and that's kind of where she likes, she's comfortable. But every now and then we drag her out, and she's getting better about it. Kathy's kind of a special person to me because I've known her since before she went into the service. So we knew each other. I trained a dog for her family, big old St. Bernard. It was a nice dog. And then after they trained that dog, then I kind of lost track of Kathy, and poof, one day she shows up as a veteran. Different person.
Totally.
Yep, totally different person. Deep down inside, she was kind of the same person, but the innocence was gone, and stuff happened. So Kathy came around here, and at one time Kathy really didn't talk much. She talked to me, but kind of. And we talked about a service dog. Now Kathy's done a very unique thing because most of the dogs that come here in our place are dogs that I have, and I help the person learn, and then we teach the dog together, and then eventually when it's ready, the time is right, the dog goes home with the person. Kathy, being Kathy, decided she wanted to do it on her own. With help. I mean, it was, supervised.
Yeah.
So Kathy and her family went out and got Brandy. There were times I shook my head, but I am very proud to say that Kathy has done the training on this dog. There were a couple of things that I was involved in, and I certainly supervised. Kathy came to class, but this is such a tight relationship. They don't like each other much.
No,
so this is really special. This is the relationship that we're looking for. Go ahead and tell us your story, Gab.
What branch of service were you in?
I was in the Army.
What year?
I was in 83 through 84. I was injured while I was there. I severed a nerve in my right arm, which basically I don't use my right arm a whole lot. And from there it went on to from protecting my right arm, I screwed up my back. And so I had to have back surgery. That was done in 96. And I now have to use a cane. And well, they wanted me in a wheelchair, but I told them no, I wasn't going in a wheelchair yet. So I started going to the VA and got involved with the program for vets, with the service dog program, learning. Brought one of them home with us.
Sound like a good idea at the time?
Oh, it was.
It was a dog to get, and my sister and my father saw this ad for these Goldens, and so we took a ride down there, but it's turned out to be all right.
What kind of dog was your first choice?
I really didn't know what kind of dog I wanted.
We were working on that.
Pat and I were talking about what kind of to train dogs and live with them. And like Pat said, my father and sister went with to get Brandy. Brandy was not my first choice. Yeah.
Well, this dog's turned out to be an absolute blessing for you.
She is. She, like Pat says, she does a lot of the same things she does for Mark. She keeps me kind of steady. There's some days that are very bad, and I need her a lot, just to hold on to her, just to have her there.
She's a balanced dog.
She's a balanced dog.
She brings you things, she carries things.
Yep. She retrieves things for me. She goes to the VA with me. She hasn't lately because she hurt her knee, so she's been R&R out here for a couple of months. But she'd go to Madison with me.
What kind of service work do you do to help out your fellow man?
I volunteer at the VA doing what they call My Healthy Vet. It's registering veterans so they can get on the computer and check appointments. They can check their medications. They can text their doctors and get responses right back from the doctors instead of having to wait for appointments. We sign them up for that. We take them through the training, show them how to use all the different things there, and I also, whatever the staff there needs me to do, if it's make copies for things or phone calls.
Stapling things together.
Stapling lots of things together, yeah, 5,000 copies of things together, yeah.
Now, you also help Pat out here.
Yeah, I help Pat out somewhat. I don't do as much as I should. I should do more, but I come out and I help her out when I can.
One of the most important things that Kathy does is she shows people, they say, I can't do that. They can't say that after they see Kathy and Brandy work.
Yeah,
That dog absolutely will do anything for Kathy.
they should.
Absolutely. And Kathy goes right out there with everybody else and does everything that anybody else could do. And Brandy is just a shining beacon of a fun relationship with such a loyal dog.
Oh yeah, she's loyal, all right.
The biggest problem we had was teaching her to be calm.
Yeah,
That was a big priority.
yeah.
But,
Little rowdy dog, yeah.
well,
She's a
She's
happy
happy.
dog.
she was happy. Oh, she smiles.
Smile, baby. Show the camera. Yeah.
Smile.
Smile.
Brandy, smile. Brandy goes into the grocery store, and Kathy's not a person that walks up to people to seek conversation. Hey, Brandy. No.
Easy.
You smile.
Easy.
Brandy, smile. Oh. When Kathy takes Brandy, she can't help but talk to people. Can't get away from it. And it forces Kathy to be much more social. She actually smiles. Look at that.
Once in a while.
It gives Kathy the ability to participate in programs, reading dog programs, to go to schools, go to churches, and educate others. Kathy won't tell you she does that. But Kathy's always there. She draws no attention to herself,
Tries not to.
but she's a very, very special person.
You're also a big kingpin on the bowling circuit, aren't you?
Yeah, she got an award for
What
bowling.
did you just win recently?
I was inducted into the Greater Beloit Bowling Hall of Fame in October
Wow.
for meritorious service, which is being an officer on the leagues, and then for performance for 290 game, 750 some series, along with other 700s and 600s and
You did tournaments all over the United States, didn't you?
yeah,
Yeah.
I traveled all over
Yeah.
with tournaments, national tournaments,
Yeah.
from Reno to Wichita, Tulsa. We
You
went
bowled
to,
a 290 game.
I bowled a 290 game, yeah, 11 strikes in a row, yep. And then 287, 279, 268. I think I've hit every 10 from 0 up to 290 throughout my career.
So what has your association with Pat Muller been for you? Is it important?
Well,
Let's see, how do we put that?
I've been trying to straighten her up for years.
For years, yeah.
Now she's a veteran. That's the only difference.
That's it, yeah. Pat is a fantastic lady.
We're friends.
We're very good friends, and I'll be there anytime Pat needs me, and she knows that she can call me, and I'll be out here in 20 minutes. Is all
That
it
will be
takes.
for you too.
And Pat will be there for me, and we're
Would you
working on
recommend her
some
to
things.
other veterans who
Oh yes, definitely. Most
going through
definitely.
problems and issues?
Yeah, she counsels a lot. She knows how to read people and understands what they've been through.
Well, one of the things that's really important, I feel, around here is that we don't isolate people. I don't believe a group of people should be isolated and that's the only people you're involved in. I believe the success of this program is that we throw a whole bunch of people together and everybody supports each other in the way that they can do best. So we have many more people besides veterans. Everybody has known trauma, and that's exactly how we operate. And so we have a group of people all mixed, mashed together. We include kids, we include families, we include people of all walks of life. And it helps with the understanding, because it's not just limited to one understanding. What you need? Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. This is Raina.
This is Raina. She loves, Brandy loves Rainy too. Yeah, Rainy likes Brandy, see? Yeah, okay. Now
And you know what else she didn't mention? She's the scorekeeper for the Ice Hogs.
Yeah,
Kathy's got a lot of surprises.
Yeah, I keep stats.
She's pretty special to us.
Way cool.
Really.
Thank
I'm
you,
just
Kathy.
here. Yeah. Okay.
We finally got you. Doesn't look like a golden.
No, this is Bach.
Ah, he's got a practice dog, isn't he?
Yeah, he's everybody's practice
Yes,
dog.
he is.
He's a wonderful dog.
Yep. Now he's the dog that kind of teaches people what it's like to live with a service dog, isn't he? Yeah. Now you've had experience with him going places and doing
yeah.
stuff. What was it like to live with him in a weekend at the motel?
Oh, it was different. He was wonderful. He was quiet. We took a walk about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Not because he had to, because Kathy wanted to.
And we both got up and decided it was time, so we went out for a little walk. And he laid on the bed. He was super. He didn't bark at anything. He just laid there and watched us.
And what were you down there for? What was it, military appreciation? Officer
yes,
appreciation.
It was the appreciation service. Yeah.
And what did you do down there? We
We
talked to all the people that came through and educated them about service dogs?
dogs, yes.
And what they can do for people with PTSD?
Yep. Gus was there.
Gary was there?
Gary was there.
You and I.
You and I. And Gus stood there at the edge of the table, and Bach stood
At attention.
at attention, watching everything go on.
Yep.
And
So in
talked
other
to a lot of
words,
people.
He isn't your dog, but he still worked for you, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Worked very well.
Yeah.
He works very well with everybody.
Yep.
He
So
teaches them.
around here, we make sure that the person has a good understanding of what's involved in having a service dog. We give them a taste of big dogs, small dogs, medium dogs, and then we can better match the person with the dog. Bach just happens to be a really versatile kind of guy. He works for anybody. He's been in 2 different homes as a part-time service dog. He's traveled all over. He works for anybody. He's the one that taught dentists what they're supposed to be like when you go through Walmart. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Really a courageous little man.
Yes, he is.
And
He's a super little boy.
he has the same service attitude as servicemen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does.
So that's kind of how we start them, is with a dog like this.
Yep.
And he's pretty cool.
Yep. Well trained and
Dependable.
all set to go.
Stable.
Stable, and he teaches you how to do it.
Yep.
He does do that.
Yep.
Awesome dog, Blocker.
Smile for the camera.
Good Bach. Huh, good boy, Bach.
We're back again with another Lakeland. And Ben. No, this is Ben. Ben's become my good buddy. Ben was here, the first time was what, 4 years ago? Something like that? Ben came one time and he said, I don't like that woman. He went away. But he went on the vet's roll trip, and one of my Lakelands went along with the bus trip to Washington. He was pretty impressed by the dog, even though he still don't like me, but he came back. The hard thing is, when we teach the lessons, they're sometimes kind of difficult lessons to hear. You have to prepare yourself. The neatest thing about Ben was, what was so impressive about him, is even though it was uncomfortable a little bit when he came, he knew what I was saying was right. So he came, and he didn't say much to me. It took him about 5 weeks before he talked to me. Once he started talking, we found out what a neat guy he is. And once we knew what a neat guy he was, he learned what he needed to learn, and he now has Lucy. Lucy is Kate's sister. So that was quite a litter. They came from Minnesota. Sarah gave them to the program. And the two of them are just special, well, all of them are, but anyway. Ben is a special friend, and he comes to class now, he laughs, he talks. He's so much fun to be around. We just really are glad that he decided to stay. So, you want to tell us something about you?
Before I lose my train of thought, Pat just mentioned that now I'm laughing and I'm talking and I'm more outgoing, and that's been an issue with me since before my military service. It's just my nature, and at one point a few years ago, I caught myself being reclusive. I wouldn't leave my house for days at a time, and when I did go out, it was minimal. Go out and get the mail and go right back to the house, and that wasn't good for my mental health, my physical health, or anything involved with me. And I'd been being treated at the VA for depression, and the program was suggested to me about 4 years ago. As Pat said, first impressions kept me away for almost a year, if not longer. I didn't like the big dogs that she worked with, and they were predominantly Airedales. She had a firm attitude in correcting her dogs, and I've always been a soft hand and a soft-spoken person.
It wasn't mean, though.
Wasn't mean. But when I came back, I had a more open mind to it. I realized my needs were not being met on my own, so I needed some help pushing me in the right direction. And that's why I feel like coming here, I've found a second home. I've been able to speak up, been more outgoing, and the people here, all the way from the staff to the other owners, have all played a part in that. When I was first looking for a service dog, I had to take into account my daughter's allergies to dogs. So we researched online and found out what dogs she could be around. And we came out here with that in our mind of what dogs we should be looking at. And I'd been working with Lucy a couple of weeks and was feeling more attached to her and drawn to her than some of the other dogs. And my daughter and I drove up here one afternoon, and nobody was around, but the dogs were out in the runs, so we could see them. And I pointed out Lucy to her, and with the age of, or wisdom of her age of 17, she said, "Dad, that would be a good dog for us. She's small enough to fit in your house, and she doesn't insult your masculinity by being a little dog." So with her approval, Lucy and I started working together almost exclusively and built our bond. And she's been a godsend in more ways than one. Not only do I, have to put in an effort, to interact with people here, but having her with me out in public also forces me to engage in conversation and contact with other people. Not always to my liking, but I know if it's making me uncomfortable, then I need to work on it, so I do. She's, everything I would want in a dog: loyal, easy to work with, easy to train. She goes to work with me. I'm a volunteer at an art gallery, and she's been adopted as the gallery mascot. So we're both getting a little culture in our lives. And it's, people don't recognize PTSD and other, injuries that, don't involve a physical change in our appearance. And it's as tough to deal with depression and other issues as it is to rehabbing a leg or an arm that you've lost in conflict. So I don't go into details with people who ask me what she's trained to do. That's a personal issue, and they hopefully will respect that. I just tell her that she helps me, and that's 100% of the truth. So they confuse her for different breeds. I've had her been described as a mini Airedale. That's the word.
Yeah, that's the word.
A mini Airedale. I've had people with parents tell their kids that she's my seeing eye dog. This was why I was grocery shopping. And
driving.
yeah, and parents tell their kids that, she's working, that I need help of some sort. So there are some respectful people. So my job is sort of progress to being an educator as well. I not only talk up her breed, I talk up Pat personally, and I talk up her kennel and the dogs and the jobs that they've done, and what, what a good place this is for not just vets, but for anybody who loves dogs. So
one of the really important things that I teach with, we start out with teaching the dogs to be emotional support dogs. They support you emotionally. And that to me is anyone who's had any trauma in their life at all, that's a very important thing. So first and foremost, these dogs start out to be emotionally supportive of their person. After that, we teach them service dog tasks, which makes them official service dogs. But one of the things that I teach, and the more thinking dogs, they're the more difficult dogs to train, but once you understand how to communicate, they're not difficult at all. Because that dog's behavior is the reflection of how you're doing. If you're fine and healthy, the dog is fine and healthy. If you're reclusive, the dog shows that too. So one of the things I think that's been really good for Ben and Lucy is, if Ben sees Lucy become less social, Ben knows, we gotta get out and about, right? Yeah. Because Lucy really truly reflects where your shortcomings lie at that particular moment. If he starts to get a little slack in some of the things, Lucy punishes him. And that forces him up out of that chair and have to be back involved, doesn't it?
when, to drive that point home, we were in class one time, and Ed had explained that situation to me. And up until then, I did take very much notice of it. But one night she says, you're just going through the motions. And she said, you need to amp yourself up a little bit. And Lucy was dragging and, slow to respond. So I put on a lighter attitude and screwed my nerve up to be more outgoing. And as soon as I perked up, so did Lucy. So she reminds me from time to time, from class to class, that, I'm sort of falling back into my old ways. And that's not good for training with Lucy, and it's not good for my own mental health. So between Pat and Lucy reminding me that, yeah, I've got to amp it up and be more positive.
And it works, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
Ben is one of our favorite guys. He's here a couple times a week to classes. He's doing a wonderful job with his dog, and he's a wonderful ambassador for not only good dog ownership, responsible ownership, but also what dogs can do. More than just a pet. That's a working dog. And she looks so pretty.
Ben, what year were you in the military?
I went in when I was 21, so that would have been 78.
78. Were you in Iraq?
No, I entered during the Vietnam era, but I never did see, I was never inland, and it was winding down, so that was something that crossed my mind, is that, I was proud to be in the service at a time when it wasn't popular. I went into the Air Force, and I was like any, eager young person doing my duty to my country. And through medical issues, my career was cut short, and that started my depression accelerating, along with dealing with epilepsy at the time. That's what caused me to be medically retired. And it was just another point in my life that I didn't see my goals to a fruition. And being depressed, I've had enough medications. I was the guinea pig for all the new meds on the block. I remember Prozac when that was in vogue, and they were prescribing it for everything. And I started taking note of what I was being prescribed and for what reasons. And I was getting tired of being their experiment and trying this med, and trying that meds, trying different therapists. Military people will know that they rotate the medical personnel on a pretty regular basis. You get to one therapist, you spend some time, you explain everything, you go through your history, boom, you have another one to go through all that all over again. So that was compiling the issues already. But with Lucy, I don't feel like talking to them, or I'm not in a good frame of mind. She and I will have a conversation.
Your objective when you went into the Air Force was to be career military Air Force?
It was to get a secure job. And I liked my jobs. I started off as assistant crew chief. Then I cross-trained to become an admin clerk. I have nothing but, except for the epilepsy and falling out on a maintenance stand when I was on top of a 130, I have nothing but good memories of my service time.
Did you fall off the C-130 when you had your epileptic attack?
Well, the last thing I remember is I was up next to an engine nacelle, and I remember hitting the maintenance stand, and then I remember waking up in the hospital. So we don't know if it was heat stroke that triggered it or some combination of things. But yeah, another thing in my life taken out of my control.
Mhm.
And that led to depression and frustration. And I was just getting sick of it. And that's lasted for quite a long time. But now it's, you know, having Lucy in my life has done a lot to change that around.
Do you still have epileptic seizure?
No, I have been seizure-free that I'm aware of, for 30 years. But I've been told that I could be having seizures in my sleep and not be aware of it. So they wanted me out and I wanted to stay in. So we had some jag moments and we come to the agreement that I will leave, but I'm going to be considered disabled, 100% permanent.
For those who do not know, JAG is Judge Adjutant General Corps, which is basically the legal staff of the Air Force.
Yeah.
That's what a JAG moment is.
We had some Perry Mason moments. My initial attorney was out on leave, and his replacement was arguing a point in my favor, and so we'll give you the direct quotes. And they called in my first attorney, and he put him on the stand. Well, yeah, everything he's been saying is what I've, been found out to be true also. So, a lot going on in my life when you're dealing with epilepsy and depression and, trying to work and carry on a relationship, and, yeah, it was, some of it I'm glad I can't remember. I don't trust my memory anymore because it left me with like a Swiss cheese. Like when I came to after a really bad series of seizures, my trainer was there, my best friend, and he was drilling me on the plane systems, and I was nailing them, right one after another. My wife was at my bedside, and she asked me if I remembered her. And I couldn't remember whether we had gotten married or we were planning to get married. I know who she was, but things like, are we married or not, I couldn't remember. That was scary.
Yeah. How'd that make her feel when she found out you knew a mechanic's manual better than you knew your
Yeah,
relationship?
that didn't help me, for pillow talk that night, but
That slowed down the pillow talk considerably, right?
yeah.
Just for a day or two until she realized, right? Well, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for being a part of us. Appreciate it.
Separate Katie and Lucy.
Now, this is a rare treat because we see what this man does, but we never see the man. He's kind of, sometimes we wonder, who's that guy back there? This is Stephen King. You write a lot of nice books.
Yes, I do.
Stephen's a professional photographer, and he is a veteran. And Stephen comes here. I don't know what we'd do without him. He records all the silly stuff we do. And we absolutely love him. And he seldom shares. What's it been? 2 years?
How about never?
No, but I mean, Stephen has been here, you've been here about 2 years.
Or longer.
Or longer. And this is the first time Stephen's going to speak in front of the camera. And we appreciate it.
When I was in Vietnam, I was in Cu Chi, which was at the exact same time, the exact same moment that Mark was there. And I was with 25th Infantry Division, and Mark was with the 1st Air Cavalry. When I was in headquarters company officers records branch, and my job was to process awards and decorations for field grade officers. Well, this one field grade officer came in and decided that he wanted to put in the Silver Star for Valor for flying at 2,500 feet in a Loach helicopter over top of an enemy fire zone, and he thought that he deserved the Silver Star for that. And so I took it and denied it and sent it back for further verification. So he comes stalking in looking for me, and then he walked over to pull his file out of the records, and I basically slammed the door on his fingers. And I said, "Sir, you have no authorization to touch that drawer." And he says, "My record's in there and I can look at it." I said, "If you open that drawer again, I'm going to call the military police and you will be arrested." And so he backed off, but then he grabbed me and walked across the street and supervised my haircut. Gave me a buzz cut. So the long of the short of it is I had kind of a cushy job there, but I messed with the wrong person because it didn't seem very fair. And so I was transferred up to Tain N. Now the only way to describe Tain N is if the body, if Vietnam was a human body, Tain N is the butthole. It is the one of the worst places in Vietnam. I was in base camp, and the guys, the infantry guys, wouldn't come in to the base camp because more people were dying inside the base camp than were dying outside the base camp. There was we got hit by 122 rockets. Well, we got hit on the average of 28 times a month for 4 months straight. So basically, maybe 2 days of reprieve per month, rockets and mortars, and it was pretty intense. And this one guy had his leg blown off, and I went over there to get him and tie him up and take him up to the vets, and I got hit by rocket fire and little minor wounds on my body. And they wanted to put me in for a Purple Heart, and I said, I can't justify that. Look at this guy. And I said, and I'm going to get a Purple Heart for a scratch for the same thing he's getting a Purple Heart for. I said, no, don't do it. Looking back, I kind of wish I had got a Purple Heart, but you know, at the time it just didn't register in my head. When I came out of Vietnam, I was like in total and complete shock. The best way to describe it is I used to keep a journal called Stephen King's Journal of Random Thoughts and Basic Trivials. And I wrote before Vietnam, I wrote in Vietnam, and I wrote when I got home. I never read much of what I wrote while I was in Vietnam, but 10 or 15 years later, I got it out and read it. And let me just say that I absolutely did not recognize that person. It was a monster. It was a person who was insensitive, uncaring, and thought death was funny. So, and so I ended up with 10% disability for quote, quote, shell shock. I tried to go into the Veterans Administration over here off 73 about 20 times in the course of 15 years. But every time I went in there, I started shaking like this because the whole thing was lined with veterans. And I absolutely could not be around veterans. I was having a nervous breakdown. I turned around and left. There was a vet help center that was right across the street from, actually in the same place as the place where you go get your pills and stuff. And there was a guy in there that sat there, and I got to talking to him, and I said, now I gotta go. And he says, no, you don't. Come here. And he says, you have got a problem. And so he set me down and told me that I had PTSD. And he showed me what the signs were. And one of the symptoms is you get nervous being around veterans or soldiers. You know, as soon as I saw that, I immediately recognized what my problem was with not being able to go in there and talk to somebody about my PTSD, which I just thought I was insane. And I want to talk to somebody about why I'm crazy and why I don't want to spend another day on this planet. So, he helped me, and I ended up getting 30% disability, and everything went along fine and hunky-dunky, except for my rages and my constantly looking up at the top of all the buildings for snipers and, you know, looking for roadside bombs and anything else that is out there to kill me and my wife. And then they started doing this thing where they were sending, no, let me back up. People sometimes ask me, how many tours of Vietnam did I do? And I said 2, because I did 1 tour of Vietnam for a year, 365 days, 12 hours, 15 minutes, give or take a minute. The second tour of Vietnam, I did in my sleep. So when I would wake up in the morning, I would wake up and I wouldn't know if I was in Vietnam, dreaming that I was stateside, dreaming that I was in Vietnam, or if I was stateside, dreaming that I was in Vietnam, dreaming that I was stateside. I would wake up every morning so disoriented that I tell people I actually spent 2 tours of duty over there. 1 year in person and 1 year in my sleep. When they started sending people back into Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 tours of duties, 3 tours of duties, 4 tours of duties, 5 tours of duties. Every time I'd hear about that on the news, I would freak out. I mean, I would start shaking, uncontrollable shaking. I couldn't stand the thought of those guys having to go back into harm's way over and over and over and over again because somebody in the government thinks it's a very, very good idea to use a limited amount of service people and just keep putting them in harm's way over and over and over and over and over again. If they're going to have 2 wars going on, they need to have a draft. There need to be people going over there 1 tour, not 6 or 8. My nephew, he's a gunnery sergeant in the Marines, and he's done 6 tours. And 3 in Afghanistan, 2 in Iran, and he's going back to Afghanistan in a month. So this is his 6th tour. And that was just unnerved me. I mean, hearing that on the news, I just lost my mind. And so I went in and explained to them what was going on. And they basically said, that's one of the symptoms, this is one of the symptoms, this is one of the symptoms. And so I ended up getting kicked up to 80% disability. Big deal. But it's not helping the guys who are doing 6 tours of duty in Vietnam and Afghanistan. I'd like to have a magic wand where I can do something about that. But obviously, there's nobody in any position of authority in America that gives a rat's butt in terms of duty or social state. So that's what sent me over the edge. And when I found out that being around veterans was one of the major causes of my PTSD. I started being around veterans. I started working with Operation Love Reunited. I photographed veterans as they were departing for Iraq and Iran, photographed their families. I make up a book of about 240 pictures for them, send it to the veteran in the country so I can look at his cutesy little wife and kids and have something to remember what's his reason for coming home. And I did that, and then I was told about this group with dogs, and that was Pat Muller. And so I said, well, you know, my brother and I used to train dogs for police departments, German Shepherds. So I know all about training dogs to tear you to pieces, but I don't know very much about training dogs to soothe your heart. So I met Pat, and I absolutely love her. She has a soul that is as large as this major city, and she loves people. She loves dogs more, but she loves people, and mostly she loves veterans more than people. And so
I love good
it's
people.
dogs, veterans, good people, in that kind of a order. Anyway, the more I got to know her, the more I liked her, and the more I wanted to help. And I got to meet a lot of people that have had it so much worse than me, so it always puts it in perspective when you see somebody who's, you know, a lot worse off than you are. So it's kind of back to that whole Purple Heart thing. It's hard to feel sorry for myself with my post-traumatic stress disorder when I see other stuff out there. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. My name's Stephen King, and signing off.
Okay. This man is his. Now, we didn't know really his story. He's very, very private. When he first came, he watched. He was a little more sarcastic than he is these days. A little more negative. Kind of angry at a lot of people. And it was so neat because he doesn't have a dog himself. Stephen learned all the same lessons that everyone else did by watching other people go through the steps. He couldn't get away from it. He was videotaping and filming, camera. Stephen got to take it home, edit the pictures. You can't misread those faces, can you? You see the proof. Stephen didn't believe a lot of things. He didn't have a lot of trust in a lot of people. That was easy to see. Didn't know why. Didn't matter. But I can see in the 2+ years that Stephen's been coming here, such a wonderful man, a much more caring man, much more considerate man, much more positive man. I just absolutely love you for sharing. Because that takes a heck of a lot to sit here in front of this camera, bare your soul, doesn't it? And to know that there's a number of people that are here for the same reasons. Not exactly the same situation, but the same reasons. So when Stephen says I love people, I love good, honest, respectful people who have proven themselves worthy. And most certainly, the veterans that are here, the people that are here, have proven those things. This is a family. And Stephen is a very, very, very important one. Oh, we just love him.